The Jefferson County Post is here today with Dandridge Town Administrator Melissa Peagler, and we're pleased to have you today, Melissa. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to talk about some exciting new things that are going on in Dandridge. You had a meeting on Sunday, a town hall meeting. It was the third town hall meeting?
Yes.
And that was to discuss a waterfront proposal that Dandridge has put together and to communicate with the public. Can you tell us a little bit about how the waterfront proposal came to be, how that process worked?
Sure, Christy. First of all, we started out with the TDOT project of the bridge. They are coming to a point where they are ready to begin construction in the end of summer, fall of this coming year. And so knowing that was coming along, the town of Dandridge Town Council decided it would be in our benefit to be proactive versus being reactive to this new development in our town. So we wanted to get a plan in place so that we could help guide the construction and design of the TDOT bridge, as well as kind of assess what we're going to do with the property that we do have once the bridge is completed. The bridge is scheduled, like I said, to start in the end of summer, first of fall this year. We started in October with this waterfront master plan. The first series was meeting with a lot of business owners, and we had a series of different types of town hall meetings where business owners came and met with the consultants as well as citizens, and we had various opportunities for various stakeholders who are involved with the waterfront project and with the town of Dandridge to actually come and meet with them. Then they hosted in January a town hall meeting where they presented 3 options based on those stakeholder meetings. This final meeting that we had on Sunday was the final draft of the actual waterfront plan. They have during this time worked with TVA, TDOT, and TWRA to come up with a plan that really doesn't have any fatal flaws. Nothing's necessarily approved, but all 3 of those agencies have reviewed the plan and participated in that process so that we could get a plan in the end that would make sense both for the town of Dandridge and all the different agencies. We wanted a plan that the citizens of Dandridge had a lot of input in, so that it would be a plan that was not only beneficial for the town itself, but the citizens and potentially the business owners and tourists that come in.
I know that I have seen some of the, before you consolidated this last plan, there were a lot of different ideas. Some were varied, extremely varied, what area to develop, what area not to develop. Tell me a little bit about the narrowing process that came down. How did it make the final cut? What made the final cut?
Well, a lot of it was based on comments and surveys that we received. For example, 85% of the surveys stated that they would like to see the library move locations from that location and better utilize that piece of property. Also, a lot of it came in from what would TVA, TDOT, and TWRA allow us to do on their properties. Obviously, TWRA has a very specific mission for wildlife and natural resources. TVA has another, mission for navigation, as well as, providing safety and dam safety and on the waterfront. So working with all those agencies kind of helped to narrow down which of the options we would choose, as well as the input from the citizens. I think the final plan that you see is a combination really of all 3 of those options that were originally shown in January. I think it maximizes the land without being overly intrusive. That's one of the things we heard from the citizens, is they really didn't like the idea of a lot of new roads or over commercializing the entire property, but they wanted to see all of it used in more of a natural manner. So I think the final plan includes utilization of all of the property, but in a more natural way and less commercialized.
In this latest version of the plan, can you pick out some of what might be the big markers, the big things that you're talking about? I know it's a huge encompassing plan, and it's spanning 10 or 20 years, possibly to come to fruition for everything. But there are obviously some of the bigger items. Can you kind of hit those as a highlight?
Yeah, I think most everyone during the whole process loved the idea of a boardwalk that would go along, I guess it would be the western side of the bridge, in front of the library and along the lake. Everyone seemed to like the idea of accessing the water from that type of a boardwalk where you could get boats, as well as walking that would happen in that direction. I think that's been one of the more popular items from the entire plan. So obviously that was included. That particular side of the area along the waterfront also included kind of some community space area. They talked about how Dandridge really likes events, and so as part of that, trying to give a place to have some events without closing all the roads. Some boat access there, as well as a lot of natural trails in those areas as well that would connect up to the boardwalk. I guess secondly, looking across the lake, trying to maximize our potential for access to the lake for boaters on the TWRA property, having additional parking, another boat dock type of, I guess, equipment where you could move it around the lake, but also more of a stable docking area. It also included the potential for the zip line, also the mountain bikes, and then a swimming area on that side, because one of the questions we get asked the most is, where can I go swimming in the lake at Dandridge? And so trying to find a location where all of our citizens can, utilize our lake and enjoy the water. Secondly, coming back across the lake over near on the east side of the bridge, you'll have a fishing pier, kind of keeping the dock to where it currently is as far as walking. But then I think the most kind of extravagant piece of the whole plan would be the idea of this stage, and then the kind of seating that would go along the dock, and the stage actually in the water. I think that's probably the most extravagant piece. I think everyone loved that idea of doing that. TVA hasn't necessarily gave its approval on it, but they said it's not impossible. There are things that we can do to try to make that happen. So we're looking at those improvements as well. So overall, it encompasses all the land in some way. Maybe not as intensive as originally proposed with roadways and lots of different boat accessories and marinas, but less intensive on land, lots of natural trails, lots of places for people to access the water.
What about, you mentioned before the library, them wanting kind of what you said, 85% surveyed wanted to see the library move from its current location. Does this plan that made the final cut, does that include a hotel in that area?
It does include, and I think hotel is kind of a misconception. I think you're looking more of an inn. Obviously, it's in our historic planning area, so it's in our historic district, and whatever would go in would have to meet our historic requirements. We would look and consider, partnering with a third-party developer at doing a historic type inn in that location. I think it would really benefit from the public infrastructure that we're looking at putting in with the boardwalk there.
And the library would go where?
Well, and there was several locations mentioned. The idea of it going over on the property adjacent to Dandridge Elementary has been mentioned. Vacant buildings in town. If the courthouse was to ever move, going into that location. In the end, we really felt like that should be the library board's decision. They know best what they need as a library and what buildings will work and won't work. And so I feel like it's best to let them decide where that moves in the future. It's not really the purpose of this plan to define the new location, but just to say what the best use of our waterfront property is.
Now, as far as cost of this plan, is there any kind of ballpark? I know that this is a staging, so
Yeah.
obviously you're not going to be saying this is a check that we're going to write at one time from Dandridge. This is a process. But I guess if you're biting off a piece of it to start with, which piece are you biting off, and do you kind of know a ballpark figure for that?
Well, and that's coming is a simple answer. Before the consultants finally walk away from this project, they will provide us with an implementation plan to show us which pieces and how much each piece would cost in today's dollars. Obviously, we'll be looking at trying to maximize our grant opportunities with TVA, TWRA, and TDOT, as well as other federal potential grants, to try to use what we have as a town, as leverage to get the maximum amount of money that we can to complete these projects. I don't foresee us being under construction at the same time that the bridge is under construction, especially on that piece of property right there beside the library. I think you may see, as I kind of discussed, TDOT is going to be doing some construction prior to actually tearing down the bridge and those kind of things. That part includes a parking lot on the TWRA property, which is part of this overall plan. So I think that may be one of the first pieces you see go in, and what our combination with that will be. Obviously, we're in budget season right now with town council. I am proposing that they put at least $15,000 towards matching grants in this year's budget for doing something with the waterfront project.
Let's talk a little bit about parking. What was that addressed in this plan on
Yes.
the town side of the bridge?
Yes, both sides of the bridge. We looked at parking. Obviously, if we build something and people come, we have to have a place to put them. There was the consideration previously of a double-decker like parking structure there at our existing parking lot across from the courthouse. There is still a version of that included, but it's a much more feasible version where you're coming in with maybe 2 decks rather than, and utilizing the existing layout of the land rather than multiple decks at that location. They also looked at how we could better maximize what we already have downtown as far as parking, and also, new areas where we could expand some downtown parking.
So let's talk a little bit about the county buildings. I know that there's been some discussion, which really, in some ways, is outside of the control of Dandridge, regarding county buildings maybe moving to another location at some point. Was that a consideration in this plan?
Well, obviously, we did discuss that idea with the waterfront people and said, hey, in the future, this might happen. However, again, that's really out of our control. And so we tried to steer them towards things that were within our control, but make them aware of possibilities for other things that we just couldn't control. And there's a couple of those items that I think you'd see on there, like the DA's office. They're suggesting that there be, reuse of that it be utilized more for retail and shopping. That's out of our control as well. It's just a suggestion to the property owner. They did that in that area, as well as the old First Baptist Church area, as well as the Dandridge Elementary School, saying it should be used for residential. Those things are all out of our control, but we asked this group to give us the best case scenario, how we could best make our town economically viable and continue that stability, and so they're giving us suggestions in that manner.
Farmers market, was that a part of this plan? First of all, tell everybody, where is the farmers market going to be this year, because people are interested, and it's one of the great things that Dandridge does offer on Saturday mornings.
Yes, currently it will stay at the existing location. There is no plans at this point to change it. Obviously, most people are aware that we had a grant to build a farmers market pavilion. It was much more scaled down than some of the farmers had previously wanted. So council has decided not to go forward with that project at this time. So currently that will stay in the current location. The farmers market is part of the Dandridge Community Trust. It is one of the events and operations that they support. So it's not really within the town of Dandridge's purview, although the farmers market pavilion was something that we were working with them to accomplish.
So tell me, what's next? We have the plan. What's your next step? Is budget putting some money in the budget? That's the next step. Maybe picking out a piece and going after some grants.
Well, I think you'll eventually have to see the town council give a final blessing on this plan. And that's what we're looking for comments now within the next 2 weeks, really until June. In June at their council meeting, they'll kind of take up and adopt the plan, and that will allow the consultants to go forward and complete the implementation plan, which is kind of the words and documents that go along with the map. That gives us kind of the guidelines for how we can pursue to get this completed. From that point, yes, we'll be trying to budget funds to go ahead and do some projects with this. We'll also be looking at grant opportunities and writing grants along with the consultant group. That's part of their role, is to help us find grant opportunities and write those grants to obtain funds to do these projects.
And one final question, Melissa. If you would, explain to people where they can find, because I know you have maps out, you have information out for the public, and like you said, between now and the June meeting, it's time to go down and take a look and make your voice heard if you haven't I know you've given several opportunities already for that, but this is the time to take a look and see what's going on. So if you wouldn't mind, let people know. I know you've got a map here, actually.
Yes, I do have a map here. In Town Hall, in the Town Administrator's office, it will be hanging here for a few weeks anyways, until the meeting in June. We also have one at the Field of Dreams Activity Center, where you can come by and look. We'll also have some information available on the town website and our Facebook page. And feel free to send us any comments or come to our meeting in June and express your opinions on this final plan.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. It sounds like there's a lot of exciting things happening in Dandridge, and I know that that this is a busy time for you with budget and all that. But it looks like there's a lot going on in the future too.
Yes, I'm really excited about the opportunities here in Dandridge.
Well, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it.